Okay, so good morning, everyone. So, like I said, we'll be starting with this new chapter called photosynthesis. Most of the basics that you would already know of. So, I will be kind of rushing through all those basic topics. Main thing that you will have for this year, which would be new, is the photosynthesis reaction in terms of light reaction and dark reaction, and then different experiments associated with this particular light and dark reaction of the photosynthesis. So that is the new part. Otherwise, the basics like chlorophyll is required, carbon dioxide is required, light is required, and so on. This you would already know of. So this is the content. I'm yet to mark the topics which have been removed. Most likely this diagrammatic representation of carbon cycle and these topics are removed. I will mark them up. But as of now, this is the whole of the content of this particular chapter. Okay, so in general, this photosynthesis word, it's coming from the two different words. Photos means light, and synthesis means obviously something that is combining together or forming together. That is photosynthesis. It happens in the organisms which we call as phototrophs, or they are also called as photoautotrophs. Autotrophs means they synthesize their own energy or a own food using the light energy. That's why photoautotrophs or photoautotrophs, which will convert light energy into chemical energy. Light energy is of course the solar energy. Chemical energy is the glucose molecule. That is what is being synthesized at the end of photosynthesis, and that is used later for the fuel or cellular activities. Now, does anyone know how is this glucose utilized for energy generation process? What is the process? How is glucose acting as a fuel or energy generation process? Anna, what do you think?
No idea.
Okay. Vikram?
Even I don't know.
Because starch when food is
Sorry?
the starch.
Starch is the backup option of the plant. But first, what is synthesized in the leaf or by the chlorophyll is glucose. Anyone? Janvi?
No idea.
Okay. Mr. Aditya?
Nope. Nothing. I can think. No, can you repeat the question actually?
I asked how is glucose utilized as a fuel for the cellular activities?
So I think they do it like how humans do it, which is like the glucose is taken into the body and then you
This,
know
this we are talking of the plants.
yeah. So I think they do it like how humans also do it, like they take the glucose in how you and then they then they convert it into ATP.
Hmm.
I think that's how they use glucose.
Yeah, kind of. So, what happens is glucose that is being taken or produced by this chloroplast, it is stored inside the cell, right? In the cytoplasm. Now, whenever this metabolic reaction happens, they will take this glucose, they will break it down, specifically in the mitochondria-like structure, which has a certain chain of reaction. Glucose will be broken down into again carbon dioxide and water, and of course there are several other components to it, but mainly let's say carbon dioxide and water. And this process of breaking down of glucose will generate ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, which is your energy molecule, and this ATP is utilized as the energy. Now again I have another question here. When we talk of ATP is utilized as the energy, right, what does it mean exactly? How is ATP energy molecule? Sure. Manya, would you like to try?
So if I don't know.
Okay. Bhavya,
Sorry, I don't know it.
Jia,
I don't know the answer.
okay, so let me answer that as well. Or anyone would like to try? Any one of you? How is ATP or why is ATP called energy molecule? Does it have some source of energy that it will give on, or what is it exactly?
No, sir, I have a doubt. So, yeah, you're asking ki why is ATP the source of energy?
Yeah.
Or why does it store energy?
Yeah, both questions they ultimately mean the same.
Oh, okay.
So ATP.
So like
Yeah.
sorry.
Go
So I
ahead.
think I was thinking like maybe how it why ATP is called the energy molecule. Is that maybe ATP is the only molecule or like the only molecule that we can that our body can efficiently transform into chemical energy or electrical energy, I guess.
Yeah, so when we talk of ATP as the energy molecule, obviously ATP has three phosphate group, right? And when you remove one of the phosphate, that's when the ATP to ADP conversion happens, and that bond is formed with certain energy. So that energy is released during the ATP breakdown, which is ultimately utilized for other biological processes. So that is what is when we talk of ATP as an energy molecule. So it is the chemical energy present in the bond of the ATP molecule. And then there is from ADP, it can also go to AMP, adenosine triphosphate, adenosine diphosphate to adenosine monophosphate. So one phosphate group when you remove or keep removing, at every time there is certain energy release. Then you might wonder why not with other molecules. Obviously they also have like let's say for example glucose itself, it also has certain bonds. That means every bond you break, it should also release energy. That is true, but the amount of energy that is released by ATP is much higher, plus that reaction is much simpler, and it does not need a lot of enzyme and lot of molecules. So within one small molecule, when you get lot of energy release, chemical energy release, that is when ATP is acting as an energy molecule within the biological cells.
So just one more question.
Yes.
Okay, what's the formula of ATP?
Formula? You mean chemical
Chemi- yeah,
structure?
yeah, yeah.
Chemical structure is very complicated. So these are two, it is purine ring, it is called as, and it has triphosphate on one of the ninth carbon, I guess. So adenosine. It's called purine base, adenosine triphosphate. You can see this one. So this is the purine base. This is the ribose sugar. Ribose sugar. And this one is, these are the three phosphate molecule. So that is what is ATP. Yeah. And you can see these base pairs, like you know, in DNA you have ATGC, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. So these are the base pair. One of the base pair is adenine, and when that adenine is attached to sugar and phosphate molecule, it is called as ATP. And here is the reaction that I was talking about. One of the phosphate group is kind of removed or released, and then only you have two phosphate molecules at the end, and this release or this breakdown of the bond will generate certain amount of energy. You can also see this 7.3 kilocalorie per molecule of ATP. So that is the amount of energy which is quite high compared to any other bond. You can also see this phosphate being removed, and this reaction is kind of hydrolysis reaction. That means water is being added and one group will take this will take OH and the H plus will be separately removed. So that is just the type of reaction that happens in the ATP molecule. Does that answer your question, Aditya?
Yeah. I just want to know the chemical formulae, but as you said, it's very complicated.
So I guess you wanted in that how many carbons, how many nitrogen, and so
Yeah,
on.
like that.
Okay. I don't know of that formula, but I know the structure in a way. Okay, so that is the chemical energy which is used for the cellular functions. Now, at the end of this whole reaction, water and carbon dioxide they are released. That is, carbon dioxide and water is being taken. They will form glucose, and then this is the reaction of photosynthesis. And then in the next reaction, where when it will generate energy, again this glucose will be broken down into water and carbon dioxide. That is a separate reaction, not as a part of photosynthesis though. Majorly photosynthesis happens with different pigment. What you know of as a chloroplast is an organelle. Within the chloroplast there are these pigments, either chlorophyll A or B, then there is carotene, and then there is xanthophyll. Xanthophyll, again, I'm not sure if you would have heard of this before, but xanthophyll is, let me show you this. Yeah, you all know this orangish color in the
Oh,
leaf.
I'm not sure, but I think we did this in seventh about that. There are other color pigments present in the leaves as well.
Correct. So there is this xanthophyll which is kind of orangish in nature. Carotene is kind of reddish in color, right? So that way these different pigments, chlorophyll of course you know these are green in color. So that way there are different pigments which does perform the photosynthesis pigment. Now another common notion that we have as a student is only green pigments they do the photosynthesis. Now this is where that misconception gets clear. It's not always the green pigment, but rather there are kind of reddish and orangish pigment which does perform the photosynthesis function, and that is when those leaves, whichever you see in a little different color than green, they do perform the same photosynthetic reaction. Ultimately, we have to understand the function of chlorophyll pigment, and that is where we will come to that function when we study the photosynthesis reaction. So all the green plants and few other autotrophic organisms, they will utilize the photosynthesis to synthesize nutrient. This we already know, using carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and the byproduct of this process is the oxygen. Again, glucose is the main product, oxygen is the byproduct. That means additionally it is removed, and this reaction I assume everyone knows it. Now, just talking about a little bit about the nutrition, because we are talking of the photosynthesis. Obviously, there are two different categories of the organisms. One which synthesize their own food, they are called autotrophs, and the one which are dependent for their food on other organisms, that is heterotrophs. So when we talk of photosynthesis, we are always talking of the autotrophic organisms, right? And because they are able to perform the function of photosynthesis, and then that whatever energy generation or utilization of different molecules like carbon dioxide and water and sunlight that we know of. Now, the process of photosynthesis is usually represented by following points. So the process of photosynthesis takes place in the green leaves of a plant. Now, again, this might be very obvious facts to us, but when we talk of photosynthesis, these are the points that we need to mention in the whole of the process. The food prepared by the green leaves is in the form of simple sugar. Again, the analogy of the sugar is not what we eat at home. Like the sugar here means the carbohydrate. So that glucose is a simpler carbohydrate. Sugar is a general terminology used in biology for the carbohydrate molecules. So do not get confused with this.
Just one thing.
Sorry.
Sugar is like the simplest carbohydrate, no? Like there's
Yeah.
no sugar as in glucose.
Yes. Sucrose is a glucose plus fructose.
Like a double, it's like double.
Disaccharide we call it. Monosaccharide and disaccharide. Glucose is a 6 carbon sugar
See,
and sucrose is a 12 carbon sugar. That
and sir,
uh,
but there's this like fructose, right? Like fructose ka formula is also the same, no?
yes, but then fructose is a ketose sugar. That means there is a ketone group in fructose, and in glucose there is it is aldose sugar. That means aldehyde group is there.
Not like ignoring all the organic stuff. Uh, like basically, like why is there a difference between the if the chemical formula is the exact same stuff, and they why the two different things?
Because that's exactly organic chemistry question. But
ये तो chemical formula same है, तो then how does it make a difference what group you are from?
no, obviously it does make a lot of difference because the electronegativity of one particular atom. I don't know if you have studied this particular aspect in chemistry, but like the ability of one particular atom, in this case carbon atom, to give electron.
Oh yeah, we've studied electronegativity.
So to take electron or to give electron is dependent on the neighboring molecules, right? So when we talk of aldehyde, it is C double bond O H, and there is only one alkyl group or any other group that is attached. So this electronegativity of this particular carbon in aldehyde is different than that of ketone, and that is when the difference in the reactions or all of these they will come into picture. And also obviously the properties itself will be different because one is aldehyde category, other one is ketone category. So that is the difference in general.
Okay, so very complicated stuff.
Not complicated, it's very simple. If you understand electronegativity part of an atom, this is very simpler aspect.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I missed the part where you were saying something about the different the pigments, about the different chlorophylls and the X wala thing.
So these are the different pigments.
You said that photosynthesis happens with the other pigments as well.
Correct.
But those pigments are like of different colors, right?
That is exactly what I said. We have a misconception that only green pigments, they do the photosynthesis. For a child which is like up to 7th, 8th standard, they know it, this is perfectly fine. But as and when we grow higher in studies, we get to know the complexities, and that is when I'm saying that carotene, which is kind of reddish, xanthophyll kind of orangish molecule, which like imparts those colors to the leaves as well, they are also able to perform the photosynthesis.
Okay, but then in the next slide, you've said the photosynthesis takes place in the green leaves of a plant, right?
Because that is the general conception that we put in, because majority of the plant, they are in green color, right? That does not mean only green plants.
Okay, technically, photosynthesis takes place in all like alive, like.
Yeah, in general, yes.
Okay.
So like I will talk about these two pigments also when we talk of the photosynthesis reaction. Ultimately, how all these pigments help is by absorbing the energy from the solar light. That is what is their main function. So whichever molecule is able to absorb the solar energy and then convert it for the formation of these carbon dioxide and water molecule into glucose, that should be acting as a photosynthetic pigment. That is as simple as it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now, so we spoke of the glucose, which is one of the simplest sugar formed in the photosynthesis. Now, what happens to extra glucose is it is getting converted into starch. Now, I'm sure you had studied this plant cell, animal cell, and in the plant cell, you draw those dot structure in the cytoplasm and label it as starch granules. So this is exactly what it is. Yeah. So all the excess of glucose is being converted into starch, which is a polymer of glucose. Now, when I talk of polymer, let me show you the structure so you will understand starch structure. So yeah, maybe any of these. Yeah. So this is okay. Yeah, this is the starch molecule which has two components. We don't need to go in detail, but this you can see as one glucose molecule, another glucose, third glucose. So that way the polymer keeps happening, and usually there are maybe hundreds or thousands of these glucose molecule within one starch molecule. Based on that number, starch, they are of different grades as well. Like some will have 500, some will have 1000 and so on. So that is what is the starch molecule in terms of structure, which is nothing but just the addition of glucose one after another. And that is stored in the leaves of the plant. Now, again, this fact we know, the green plant will convert sunlight energy into chemical energy by making carbohydrates, simpler carbohydrates. So that is the whole process of photosynthesis in a glimpse. Now, continuing this further, so each of the chloroplast, now we know a cell has a chloroplast has a photosynthetic pigment. Majorly we'll be talking about chlorophyll, at least at the start. So the light energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule, and the carbon dioxide and oxygen, they will enter through the tiny pores of stomata. Now this part we already know. When we were speaking of the transpiration, we know the function of stomata. One of the function was to exchange the gases. Apart from removing the water vapors from the plant leaf, it was also functioning to allow the entry of gases. So that is what is written here, and that is the way it will be utilized for the photosynthesis function. Another byproduct of the photosynthesis is sugars. Sorry, not the byproduct, that's a mistake. Another product of the photosynthesis, it cannot be then another. The product of photosynthesis is sugar. Sometimes fructose is also formed depending on which pathway it enters. So again, there are complicated pathways. We call it C3 and C4 pathways. I guess we have a glimpse of it in the later part of this chapter. So we'll be talking about this part there. And another misconception that we know is the photosynthesis only happens in the leaves, but that is not the case. It can happen in any of the green part as in any of the green part which has chlorophyll pigment, like for example sepals or green stem, and of course the leaves and so on. So that way these parts of the plant, they can also undergo the photosynthesis process. Yeah, and the rest of the part we already know. Yeah, just the last point, it's not just the starch sometimes that is being formed. The glucose is also utilized for the formation of cellulose. Cellulose is one of the major component of the plant cell wall that we know of, right? In most of the cases, plant cell wall is made up of lipids, proteins, and carbohydrates. So there are different components in different percentage. So like human cell will have it differently, plant cell will have it differently, bacterial cell will have it in a totally different way. So the glucose that is formed in the photosynthesis will also be used for the formation of cellulose, which is the cell wall component, or you can also say it's a structural material that is used in the plant cell wall. Okay, does anyone have any question before I start talking about the steps and so on? I hope this part was more general and everyone is aware of it.
So now you're going to start talking in magical language.
Sorry?
Now you're going to start talking in magical language.
Maybe. Okay, so there are three main steps in the photosynthesis. So first being absorption, which is the absorption of the sunlight energy by the chlorophyll pigment. Second is the conversion of light energy into, so conversion of light energy into chemical energy, and it will split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. So that is what I said earlier. when the chlorophyll will absorb the energy from the solar light, it will split the water molecule and it will form it into hydrogen and oxygen, and they will go separately. With one will go with the phosphate molecule, other one will go with the glucose molecule, and so on. So that way there are different reactions. We have to study all those reactions when we talk of the light and dark photosynthetic processes. And the reduction, that is the last step of the carbon dioxide by hydrogen to form the carbohydrate. So this reduction, does anyone know what is reduction in chemistry? Of course, you have studied it. Gain of electron, right? So when the carbon dioxide will gain more electron, it will and that happens from the hydrogen. It will have ability to form bonds with more and more carbon atoms, and that is how it forms the carbohydrate structure. Like carbon dioxide has only one carbon, and this glucose has 6 carbon. That means all the 6 carbon has to be linked to each other. So that is where the energy is gained in this process. Now, just a quick reminder for all of you that if you want to remember the sequence, you just remember it alphabetically. It's ACR: absorption, conversion, reduction. Very simple thing. Where does this process occur? We already know it happens in the chloroplast, in the all the plants, and also in the blue-green algae, which is a special type of algae, which is autotrophic in nature. This part we already spoke of. Yeah. So, where is this chloroplast present? It is present in most of the plant cell, which are located in the mesophyll area. Now, when we were looking at last chapter, especially in the stomata structure, we saw there are 2 epidermis, upper and lower, and between these 2 epidermal layers, there was palisade mesophyll, that was like columnar cells, and then there was spongy mesophyll. Both of these mesophyll areas, which is the mesophyll means middle chlorophyll containing cells. So those cells, they will have this chloroplast present in them. Conditions, we know sunlight is required, chlorophyll is required, all of these raw materials. So there have been specific questions being asked. What are the conditions required for photosynthesis? These are the conditions. What are the raw materials required for photosynthesis? It's obviously carbon dioxide and water. Which are the photosynthetic pigment? Again, these are the 4 pigments that we know of. I don't think I need to explain again and again this part. Same here as well. How the plants obtain the carbon dioxide. This part we had studied in the transpiration. I will not explain it here. What you need to remember here is how the opening and closing of the stomata happens, and how that controls the exchange of gases in and out of the leaf structure. So that is what you have to explain. So again, you talk of turgidity, you talk of water absorption here, then the flaccidity or turgidity of the guard cells, so the opening and closing of the stomata, and so on. So that is what is given on this slide. I will not explain any more than that. So I assume this part would be clear to you all. Then similarly, how the plants obtain water for photosynthesis, we have done whole chapter on it, that is absorption by roots. There we have spoken of all of these points, so you can just go over those points, and of course you know what is happening in that absorption by roots. So that is what is given here. So there you talk of osmosis, cell sap content, water movement, and how will the water reach to the leaf cell. That is what you need to talk about, from soil to the leaf cell. So that is all that is being mentioned. And I'm kind of skipping all this content because it just repetitive in this chapter. Okay. Now, there are quite a few factors which affect the process of photosynthesis. And again, these factors might be obvious to you, but how do they affect? We need to be aware of. So first factor being light intensity. Again, we know that increased light intensity will result in increased rate of photosynthesis. Light intensity is increased, that means energy content is ultimately increasing. That means chlorophyll will get more energy. So obviously more amount of photosynthesis, very simple there. Concentration of CO2, again the same thing, more CO2 if it is available for the process of photosynthesis, more glucose will be formed, more photosynthesis. Usual carbon dioxide that is present around the leaf structure and which is adequate for the photosynthesis reaction is almost 300 to 400 parts per million, ppm it is called. That means 300 to 400 parts per million molecules of that particular reaction. So that is a very tiny amount, like 300 and 400 compared to 1 million. It's like very tiny amount. So that much of carbon dioxide is very much sufficient for the photosynthetic reactions in a particular plant. Temperature, again, optimum temperature is required, what we call as room temperature, from 25 to 35 degrees Celsius. And that is where the temperature is taking a major role in the photosynthesis. Now you know of the fact that some of the plants that we can grow in Kashmir cannot grow outside, like for example apple tree, right? Or for other ways, there are some plants which are specifically growing in the southern part of India, which we cannot grow in the cold region. And the obvious reason is because of those plants, they will not be able to perform photosynthesis efficiently at drastically different temperature than the usual ones. So that is why optimum temperature range is 25 to 35 degrees. Of course, there are plants which do photosynthesis at extremes of temperature, but these are the exception one. Main ones, most of the plants, they do photosynthesis at optimum temperature. Water, again, enough water should be available so that the turbidity or cool of the plant is getting enough water. Again, turbidity will ultimately affect the carbon dioxide exchange and so on. So that way water is also required, and the scarcity of the water will lead to ultimately less amount of photosynthesis. So less water, less photosynthesis, more water, more photosynthesis. Simple equation. Pollution, again, pollution may affect by allowing the particles from the pollutants settling down on the leaf surface. So ultimately the exchange process being blocked of the stomata, that is blocking of the stomatal pores and making it difficult to take in carbon dioxide. So ultimately it will affect the photosynthesis process. So that is again a simpler logic. Any question here in the factors? Anyone? Okay, so I assume there are no questions. Okay, I'll just finish this part. Again, that is a very common thing that we know of. No, we have to study the chloroplast structure as well. Okay, we'll do it, the chloroplast as well today. Okay, so photosynthetic reaction, again, this reaction you are very much aware. This is the balanced chemical equation of the photosynthesis. 6CO2 plus 6H2O, that is 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water. It will form C6H12O6, that is the glucose formula, and what we call as oxygen. 6 molecules of oxygen, they are being released in this process. The most important part is it is an endothermic reaction. Photosynthesis reaction is considered to be endothermic reaction. That means it will absorb the heat energy and it appears to be kind of cooling down reaction. Exothermic reaction is it will release the heat. Endothermic reaction will absorb the heat. So that is the difference there. So photosynthesis is endothermic reaction. Now in some of the bacteria, unlike plants, they do perform photosynthesis but do not produce oxygen as the byproduct. And these bacteria, they are called as anoxygenic photosynthetic bacteria. They are photosynthetic bacteria, but they don't produce oxygen during the photosynthesis process. And that is why they are called as anoxygenic. While the bacteria which produce oxygen during the process of photosynthesis, they are called as oxygenic photosynthetic bacteria. And remember, we are talking of the autotrophic bacteria, which does have photosynthetic pigment. We are not talking of the general bacteria here. So these are the specialized bacteria which are able to perform photosynthesis. Now, this is surely a completely new part for you all. That is the structure of the chloroplast, right? Now, when we look at the structure, like of course, you know why we have to look at the structure, because it is important for photosynthesis, that organelle. So I guess I can skip whole of this part because that is just a repetition of what we had already discussed. But just for this purpose, it is kept in on this particular slide. Okay, and I will not even talk of this description, that you can go over it. I will only take help of diagram and explain this chloroplast structure. So this whole chloroplast structure is a capsule-like body, right? So you can see, and remember another confusion that most of the student they have is they consider this as one cell. No, it is one of the small component within the whole cell, whole plant cell. So do not get confused there. So this capsule-like body of the chloroplast is present within the plant cell. It has two membranes, outer membrane, inner membrane. Within these two membranes, there is something called as intermembrane space. We will talk of the function of this intermembrane space later during the reactions. But remember, there is outer membrane, then intermembrane space, then inner membrane. Within this inner membrane, there is a space which is called as stroma. This stroma is filled with certain molecules. Molecules in the molecules of water, as well as molecules of like how the cytoplasmic content has certain nutrients, minerals, and so on. Similar way, there is stroma inside this chloroplast structure. Now, within this stroma, there are these disc-like structure which are arranged one on top of each other. So this disc-like structure that you can see here is called as thylakoid. Another confusion that happens between students is what is hydathode and what is thylakoid. They sound similar a bit, but hydathode is the margin of the veins or the pores at the margin of the vein through which guttation occurs. Thylakoid, these are disc-like structure which are helpful in the photosynthesis process because they are part of the chloroplast. So the thylakoid, and when they are arranged in stacks, like you can see here, light green stack is being shown in this, that is called as granum. A singular form is granum, plural form is the grana, Grana. So these are the same structure, grana or granum, whether singular or plural. So the stacks of thylakoid or disc-like structure within chloroplast is called as granum. In between the granum or in between the thylakoid structure, there is a connecting tubular structure which we called as lamellae, and because it is present in the stroma, it is called as stroma lamellae. And remember, you have to like be aware of all these words. You need to remember all these terminologies because they are very, very important. So that is the stroma lamellae. And within the thylakoid structure, it is called as thylakoid lumen. Lumen means any empty, empty as in inner portion of any particular organ is called as lumen. So similarly, thylakoid also has a lumen inside it. So these are all the structures which are present in the chloroplast. So again, why we are studying this? When we talk of the light photosynthetic reaction, we will need all these structures. What happens to the carbohydrate, what happens to the water, where does it go, from where to where it transferred. So during that, we will need all these names. So you better remember all these names right now itself. So again, quick revision: outer membrane, inner membrane, in between there is intermembrane space. Within this inner membrane space, there is a stroma, which is a space enclosed within the inner membrane. It will have a disc-like structure called thylakoid. They are arranged in a stacks, and that stack is called as grana. Two thylakoid structures, they can be connected with each other with a tubular structure, what we commonly know as lamellae. This is stroma lamellae, and within the thylakoid, what we have is the thylakoid lumen, that is the inner portion of the this thylakoid structure or disc-like structure. I know it can get too much at times, but yes, we need to remember all these names, and that is what is being explained on this particular slide in the points. So you can go over this. One point that I missed, this matrix or the lumen will contain dissolved enzymes or starch granule and copies of the chloroplast genome. If you remember, chloroplast has its own DNA, and that is present in this lumen or the matrix within the thylakoid structure. So that's it. I guess we can stop for today. If anyone has any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we will say goodbye. And tomorrow we don't have class. Next week we will start with the light photosynthetic reaction. That's where we will actually study different chemical reactions and so on. These are biochemical reactions.